Hello, welcome to Duncan Egg Bricks and to a little side project that I've been working on in between doing my Hogwarts updates. Never fear, there will be another one of those coming next week. Those of you who've watched my videos before might know that along with Lego, one of my other big passions is trains and railways and everything associated with that. So I decided that I was going to create myself a classic British tram. I realise some of you might not be familiar with the term tram. In other places in the world, it is called a streetcar or possibly a trolley. It's basically a kind of rail vehicle that runs, in some cases, along the roads with road traffic. It's kind of an early form of public transport. In a lot of places around the world, they've been replaced by buses, including a large part of here in the UK. But in some places, they have made a comeback, although they won't look like this. This tram is a version of a classic tram, which I've been on several times. In fact, it's not really a version of one particular model of tram. It's a kind of amalgamation of some different variations. In particular, these are, or this rather, is based on ones that I've ridden on at Beamish, which is a place in Northumberland, in the north of Britain, which is a fantastic living museum where you can take rides around on trams and go to all sorts of different buildings and places set in different decades. But the trams are a real feature for me. I've also based it partly on trams seen at Critch Tramway Museum, which I've never visited but looks really nice. The basic design of this is a double-decker tram. We seem to go for a lot of double-decker vehicles in Britain, and that means we've got a lower deck and an upper deck. In this case, this is an open upper deck. I'll just tilt the camera up a little bit. So here there are seats for minifigs, but then there is no roof above them. There are quite a lot of older trams that look like that, and I decided to replicate that, partly because it meant I had to get fewer windows, and partly because it's a design that I really happen to like. This is in kind of classic tramway colours, or at least the way I think of it, with the dark red, the tan, and then actually down here I've used dark brown. The reason for that being that this piece here, which is the sort of train motor outside decoration piece, is only available in a few colours, the most common of which is black, and then there's also some available in light grey / light bluish grey, and then dark brown is the other colour. Interestingly, I think this has appeared in only one set with a train, and then it's also actually appeared in the Ninjago City Gardens, not being used as part of a train at all, just as a piece of decoration. So I managed to get myself a couple of these, and I've used that as the accent colour for underneath rather than just black. These trams tended to have very brightly painted undercarriages, I think possibly just so they stood out when these were travelling along the road, but as this was the only other colour I could go with, I decided to go with that colour. As you will have seen from the opening of the video, this is indeed motorised. This is using power functions, and I've actually cannibalised these parts from the Hogwarts Express, so the tender is currently sitting over on the floor in pieces. I will be getting replacement parts either in power functions or powered up to replace this. As a result of it being powered, you can see that the entire lower deck is full of the power functions components. In fact, this is as small as I could make it while still being big enough to hold the components. You can see the IR receiver just sticking out the back there. It's slightly unfortunate because I would have liked to put some figures on the inside, but I am still able to fit them on the upper deck, which is another good reason to make this a double-decker tram. I was partly inspired to actually go ahead and make this because of the recent Main Street set, the Christmas set for this year, part of the Holiday Village or Winter Village, which comes with a very American-styled tram, and I was initially thinking of using the instructions from that set to create my own, so I started doing that, and then I actually went back and designed my own version. I can remove the top deck just here and show you more of the details. So I'm using these fence pieces around the edge. This black bit is not really meant to be as thick as it is. It's just the way that I could make it work. It's meant to be kind of railings around the top. In fact, I'll put some pictures up on screen to show you the tram that I base this mainly on. And there you can see I've got space for 6 figures facing in either direction because this is a bi-directional tram, so it can go either way, and you can see it's got controls at either end. I've just got a driver at that end for now. In the middle, we've got what's called the trolley pole, which, yeah, it's another weird thing that it's not called a tram pole, it is called a trolley pole, and this would be what picks up electricity from an overhead cable. Just use one of these zipline pieces at the end because I think that's pretty accurate, really. And then there's just some bars and pieces like that, just holding it all together. I've put the dark brown in again as that kind of accent colour for the mechanical bits. But anyway, that's the top deck. Just lifting this off the track, you can see the battery box inside. It's just that rechargeable one, which sadly isn't made anymore, along with pretty much all the power functions components. Just turn that off. Yeah, and that's all wired in. So this is the wire from the IR receiver. It just goes underneath the battery box. And then this is all connected here with all the cables tidied in there. I've actually put this in. It's not actually fixed in with any studs. It's just held in place by the cables pretty much. And then this on top to stop it popping out. What I may do in future is actually extend this by a stud at either end, partly so I can have some forwards/backwards facing windows, but also to enclose this a little bit more. And I may look into getting some powered up components, because then I don't need the IR receiver, just need the battery box, and that can then be centered and things might look a little bit nicer. The battery box is currently as low as it possibly can sit over the train motor. If you don't know how the train motors work, they're one complete unit. You then put axles and wheels on them. And then on top, it's got a sort of Technic pin sticking out of it, which then allows it to kind of work as a bogie or a truck on an articulated locomotive. Obviously, in this case, I'm not using it for that function, but there's no option to remove that pin. So the battery box is down as far as possible on top of that, while still allowing space for the cables to go underneath. There are solutions using third-party components that have smaller battery boxes, and you know, maybe in future I'll go ahead and use that, but I am a bit of a Lego purist, so I decided to go for that. This tram uses quite heavily some relatively new pieces. I'll just take off these quarter tiles, which are these macaroni type pieces here in dark red. They're effectively like the 3x3 plate with the corner cut out here, but then they've actually got the middle bit removed. They popped up first, for me at least, in the most recent Obi-Wan Starfighter, and like as you can see, it uses quite a lot of them just to create that rounded shape at the end. Like I mentioned, it is double-ended, so while the driver stands at one end, what would happen in real life would be that passengers would board at the back, and then these trams would actually have a spiral staircase at either end, sort of half spiral, leading from here up to the top deck. I decided not to model that, just at 6 wide. This really wasn't going to be wide enough to actually implement that, but maybe I'll look at it in future. For the moment, I'm just imagining that the staircase is inside here. You just have to pretend that the power functions components are not there. I was thinking about it the other day. Here in Britain, we have some old buses called Route Masters and similar ones, which have a half spiral staircase at the back. And I'm assuming that was, you know, held over from trams like this. So there we go, that is my tram. I'm very happy with how it's turned out, and the only trouble is now I do need somewhere to run it, so I may end up making a street scene for it. I think I'm not going to do that just yet, because I've still got a lot of other things to work on, but I'm very happy with how this has turned out, and I think that in future I may want to add bits to it, or at least make a little scene where I can display this and make it look really like it's in its proper place. So yeah, if you are interested in more to do with trams and trains and things like that, then I will definitely do some more videos. If not, I will just be working on them off camera. Unfortunately, if you were going to suggest it, I can't run this around the same circuit as my Hogwarts Express, mainly because there isn't enough clearance. I'd have to take off the trolley pole, and even then the tops of the railings kind of scrape the undersides of the shelves. So I'd rather not do that than scuff up the pieces. But I will be able to run this on track, just laid out on the floor, which means I'll be able to get a bit of enjoyment from it. So there we go. Thank you for watching. I do hope you have enjoyed something a little bit different. Let me know if you have, and if you've got any suggestions or any modifications that I can make to this to make it even better. I'll be back next week with another Hogwarts update. So until then, have a good one.